Layla, the leader of Hezbollah, is set to speak on the protests today. What's Hassan Nasrallah likely to announce?
He is indeed. Now, with Hassan Nasrallah, it's very difficult to predict what he's likely to announce. He is not a man who is given to explaining himself or having to make reactionary speeches to things. He takes his time and expects everyone to wait for him. He does not float lines with the press in the way that other politicians do in advance. So it's hard to know. Based on his speech, his last speech, which was only last Saturday, we can probably gather a few things. The first is that there are two reasons why he might be giving another speech so soon, only a week after his last one, when he doesn't do it regularly. The first one is possibly nervousness that nobody seemed to listen to his last speech because he's used to being listened to. Or the second reason might be that he's going to announce a very different tack. In his last speech on Saturday, he said very unpopularly with a lot of people that this government should not be brought down. If this government was brought down, it would take too long to build up another government with the economic crisis that's going on, and that the people of Lebanon should work within this government to try and make changes. He did say they were right about corruption and all the other things they're complaining about, but he said we must work with this government. And of course, the thing is that normally Hezbollah and Hassan Nasrallah depict themselves as the people, the men of the people, so to speak. But in this situation, they're actually very closely allied with this government and in a good position since the last election to have a lot of power in Lebanon, so they don't want this government to fall. We have started seeing these clashes. Last night, for hours, there were Hezbollah protesters in the central Beirut protests, and they had to be separated from other protesters by riot police. And today already, we've had some more of those clashes here earlier on in the day. We've now seen cars turning up at these protests in downtown Beirut with speaker systems on top of them. We assume the reason is that they're going to try and broadcast Nasrallah's speech live into the protest crowd when it starts. And the riot police here trying to shut the roads to scooters and vans so we don't have similar violence to what we had yesterday.
Layla, I can see protesters behind you as you were talking there. Clearly, those anti-government demonstrations not going anywhere for now, despite the announcements we had from the Prime Minister earlier this week. Is there anything that Saad Hariri's government can do to quell this unrest?
Absolutely, there does not seem to be much they can do now, because really all the protesters want is for them to go. That's all the government can give them that they will accept. They have tried various different methods. Prime Minister Saad Hariri on Monday announced this reform package, and it really was quite a development from the last budget. The last time they had a budget in 2019, it took 4 days to pass some really quite minor changes. On Monday morning, they managed in one morning to pass the 2020 budget with no new taxes on individuals, which is what people were angry about, saying they would take a 50% pay cut to current ministers and former ministers, saying they would introduce a law to try and get back money that had been illegally siphoned off from state funds to private interests. None of that seems to have appeased people, because people have now seen that if they all rise up together, they can shut down the country. And the government then changed tack. On Wednesday, they started, instead of saying, we will allow you to protest, they started trying to get the army to push people back off the roads, the road blockades that are happening and crippling this country economically. And then yesterday, President Michel Aoun spoke for the first time, and he said, we will protect your right to protest, but you must protect the right of movement. You must not block the roads. We must keep the economy going. And protesters, this is the head of the country, the figurehead of the country, the president, they completely ignored him, and they said, this is our power, blocking the roads, stopping the country from working, and we will not stop. The roadblocks today, more than ever previously in the week, there are 30 alone around Beirut, impossible to travel in and out of Beirut by car.
Okay, people taking to the streets for the 9th day in a row. Layla, thank you very much for that update. Layla Molana-Allen reporting there from Beirut.